Welcome to another episode of Petty and Profound. My name is Caitlin, and I'm joined by my co host brother, Morgan. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. While in previous episodes, we've talked about some of our 80s and 90s movie favorites, today we're going to talk about a movie that just came out and has become a cultural phenomenon, K pop Demon Hunters. How pumped are you, Morgan?
Pretty excited.
Yeah. By the way, I was told by my husband who does the editing for these to encourage viewers to like and subscribe and definitely leave comments. If you've seen the movie, would love to hear your thoughts about it, whether you're younger or older. This movie is for everybody. So definitely give us your thoughts. What do you think about the movie? So, Morgan, as I am wont to do, I have a little description of the movie here. This is kind of both plot summary as well as, cultural summary of how it's impacted or, its impact so far. Would you like me to read it?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. K-pop Demon Hunters has exploded into a full-blown cultural phenomenon, just as I said. What started as a quirky animated musical about a girl group secretly moonlighting as demon slayers has now become Netflix's most watched film of all time, racking up over 230 million views and even topping the box office in its limited theatrical run. Blending dazzling K pop performances with Korean folklore, anime inspired visuals, and universal themes of identity and self acceptance, the film has struck a chord with audiences around the globe. And behind the magic is a fascinating backstory. Sony originally sold the movie to Netflix during the pandemic, a deal many now see as one of the most financially short-sighted movie moves in recent Hollywood history. Because this isn't just a hit; it's the beginning of a billion-dollar franchise. You'd agree with that?
Yeah, I would completely agree with that.
So it's funny. I first heard of this movie. I was on, doom scrolling on Facebook, and at the beginning of the school year, everyone does the back to school photos with their kids, right? And the kids often hold up a board or a chalkboard. I'm Sally. I'm in the third grade, et cetera, et cetera. And often there's a my favorite movie is.
Sure.
And I remember just scrolling and then looking at this one kid's and it said K-pop Demon Hunters. I was like, that's a weird title. Who watches that? I had never heard of it. This was like in July, or clearly not July, maybe early August. So, and literally that same day, my husband Troy comes home and he's like, have you heard about this movie called K-pop Demon Hunters? It's apparently becoming really popular. All the kids are talking about it, and I'm like, yeah,
Kids
whatever.
these
I
days,
still don't.
yeah.
Yeah, these kids. So I just kind of it's stuck in the back of my head. But then I started seeing article after article about it, and it just kind of grew in popularity. And so a few weeks ago, I finally watched it, and we watched it in my house together with our 4-year-old, and within a few days, I think I'd watched it 5 times due to repeat requests. So I feel very well acquainted with the film now. What about you, Morgan?
I've watched it twice. I enjoy it. I think it's a fun watch. I
Yeah.
see what the appeal is. I don't know if I watch it for the same reason that other people do, but it's fun. It's fun. There's some interesting themes. You can go light on it, you can go deep on it. I like its versatility. One of my kids had told me about it for a while, but I think for me, part of the reason I didn't check it out is just the title. I didn't know what to make out of the title.
Sure.
And I was just kind of like, that sounds like something I wouldn't like. Um, and then I watched it. I'm like, oh no, it's fun. But
Hmm.
again, like I think once I got past the title and once I started watching it, I was like, oh, I can see it.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I was reading an article about it, and they were interviewing a parent of, like a parent of like 4 kids, and they had the exact same reaction. Originally the kids were like, "We really want to see this," and the mom was like, be watching anything with demon in the title. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't sound highbrow. It sounds really like demon hunting, K-pop, blah. Yeah, the title really turned me off. And it's weird, but now it's like I don't think it could be anything else. And in weird ways, almost
Yeah.
endearing how clunky the title is now.
I just didn't see how the two went together. Again, it would be like, if someone said, you know, roller coasters and,
Hamburger shop.
yeah, exactly. Just like two things you don't necessarily think about as necessarily going together. I was just like, yeah, I didn't see the connection.
Yeah, but as most things go, once it reaches like such a fever pitch in the zeitgeist, it's like, fine, okay, fine, I'll watch it. And I actually feel, I talked to you about this previously. They've definitely submitted it for Oscar nominations, both in like Best Animated Feature and then Best Song. I don't know if they'll submit for anything else, but definitely Golden is the song that
Sure.
they're thinking about submitting. But they might actually submit more. Because another fascinating thing about this screenplay and the songs, five of the songs have like been on the top
Billboard
100
top
charts,
20. Yeah.
and the top four songs I have it that are most popular. Golden is number one, which is a Huntrix song, and then Your Idol by the Saja Boys, that's number two, and then Soda Pop, also a Saja Boys song, that's the third most popular, and then How It's Done, which I believe is the song that starts off the movie. So that's like the fourth most popular, which is fascinating. Someone created a script, two fictional bands, girl band and a boy band, and together created like more pop hits than how many like actual pop stars combined. So I think that it just kind of blows my mind that they were able to create such an original script, but also bring in such musical success into this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers, and that's kind of what I
So
was
many
saying
layers.
before. You can go to the music side of it, you can go into the cultural relevance, you can go into the historical aspect of it because I think there's a fair amount of like history and Easter eggs in that vein. So
So many Easter
yeah,
eggs.
I like that you can approach it from a bunch of different angles, and that different people might find different things appealing. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So, how do you want to break down this movie, or how do you want to discuss it? I think the first thing I'd like to talk about is kind of what you were touching upon. What makes this movie so good? Or like so successful? And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head is that it has a lot of layers. Like it's kind of a love story, but it's also just a story about acceptance and overcoming one's demons, literally and figuratively. But also it has a lot of symbolism and cultural symbolism that you don't see in movies in general, much less children's movies. Yeah, and then the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack makes it rewatchable just because it's so catchy. It really carries the narrative of the whole movie. But yeah, Morgan, what do you think makes this movie so successful and so rewatchable?
I mean, one thing we had talked about, briefly, is sort of how it reminds me a little bit of the movie Frozen.
Yes.
You have, a star, a heroine with sort of a secret slash superpower. It's something they're struggling with, and it's simultaneously something that they're ashamed of, but maybe someday they could be proud of, something they're trying to
Mhm.
overcome, but they haven't gotten past yet. You know, obviously with Elsa, it was, freezing everything. And, with this, spoiler alert, one of the heroines, they're, part demon, even though they're a demon hunter, so they're very conflicted.
Yes,
Um,
cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, I don't, but I think most people feel conflicted. I think most
Mhm.
people feel like they're poorly understood.
Or there are parts of
Um,
me I'm ashamed of, or I don't like.
yeah, well, everyone has holes in their game. Everyone has things that they wish they were better at. So I think in terms of themes, I would probably have that as like a pretty top level theme. Just because it's
So why
so
is it popular?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so visually apparent. And a
Hmm.
lot of people are self conscious about their appearance. And this is literally, like their demon marking. So, whether people don't like their hair, or don't like, something else about their physical appearance, it's very easy to relate to, because who hasn't been like, oh, I don't like the way I look today. I don't like whatever. I don't like the way my hair looks today. Something
Yeah.
like that. So I think it's pretty relatable. And then also too, it's everyone, the way the plot is, they're constantly fighting for the fate of the world, and even though everyone isn't doing that, everyone feels like at least their own world. People always feel like their own world, like the walls are closing in. It was a really bad day. People feel like they're just trying to hold things together. I think that's relatable too. I mean, on a
Sure.
smaller scale, obviously.
Hmm.
Most people don't feel like demons are trying to literally, you know, crash the world. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
think I think sort of like losing control, being ashamed, having things, I think that's all very relatable.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me. The movie, it talks about really serious subject matter, or like very dark subject matter. Demons, basically hell, right? Hell is a huge part of this story, and that's not necessarily a setting that one would think would be a primary environment for a children's movie. And yet, like, of course, the demons are very cartoonish and clownish and incompetent in a lot of ways, and so that makes it, and
Yeah.
there's fighting, right? And they say they're gonna kill the demons, which is weird because they're kind of already dead. They just send them back to the
Yeah.
underworld. But again, some very dark topics, but I feel like the movie makes them shockingly light, like light enough for a children's movie. And there is violence, but it's very like, again, when they're attacking the demons, like you don't see blood or gore. It's kind of like fisticuffs fighting. And
It's
so
a little
again, it's
Wily
very
Coyote.
approachable. What?
I was gonna say it's a little bit like Wily Coyote, Bugs Bunny.
Yes.
It's that kind of violence.
Yeah, yeah. I One thing I really like about the movie, and you mentioned this, is a lot of the Korean cultural symbolism woven in. And so I think my favorite part of that is the Dwarpy cat. That is the name of the cat.
Yeah.
And so I have a little quote here from an article. It says, one of the coolest details in the movie is how the animators wove in references to minhwa, Minhwa, a style of Korean folk painting. Minhwa often features symbolic animals like tigers, magpies, and even quirky little cats, creatures that represent protection, luck, or playful trickster spirit. And so what's interesting, I was kind of looking at this, and the Dwarpy cat, it is nuts. So in folk art, in Korean folk art, tigers started out as being like this terrifying predator, a symbol of strength, and it was associated with like people in power. And so then the common folk would make the cat look a little stupid or like clumsy, and that was a way of like being subversive to like the people in power.
Sure.
And so the magpie it's always paired with the magpie. The magpie is
That's the bird. The
symbolic of like
magpie.
a change. What were you saying?
The magpie's the bird.
Yeah, the magpie is the bird. It stood for ordinary people or commoners, often chirping at or teasing the tiger. Again, basically sticking the nose up at uh, people in power. So, anyway, I read that the idea for the cat was by the director and screenwriter's husband. He's like an art director, art creator, and he said the way to do a good children's movie is to do a movie that 20-year-olds would want to watch because younger kids are often on the internet looking at videos on TikTok, and these videos are done by people in their 20s, and he thought like the cat would be a great character that young people would like, kids and younger people. And so it was like
It was
90%
my
working
favorite. I
cat and
love the
like
cat.
yeah, and 10% their own based off of their cat that's always like knocking things over. But yeah, the cat with as a messenger with the little thing on its tongue,
Right.
I love it. And
Lots
it's
of
so funny every
slobber.
time yeah, the cat's about to be in the scene, my son calls me because he knows I like the cat the most. So Dorothy Cat was pretty great. Netflix, I sent you a pic. They were selling stuffed animal cats to look
They're
like
sold
Dorothy Cat,
out.
already sold out.
I tried to buy one. They were sold out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure they'll have many more for Christmas. Again, I read that Sony and Netflix were woefully unprepared for how successful this movie would be. Uh, Again, they had no concept that people would want merch. People would probably want to be, have Halloween costumes. They were not prepared. So I think they're trying to work on a sequel and maybe even a play. I read, which this could totally be a play. It'd be a great play. Um, so I'm gonna stop rambling. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts.
Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce it. Whether it's I think you I think I always said derpy cat, but I've never heard it out loud. So anyway,
I mean, maybe it's DW
okay.
dwarf.
No, you're probably
If
right.
I
You're probably right. We already own some merch. We Since we couldn't get the stuffed animal, we ended up getting like a pin, because H likes to collect pins, and they were like, "Hey, I found a good, K-pop Demon Hunter cat pin," and I was like, "All right, yeah, I'll get that." So that arrived in the mail recently. So that's kind of fun. Yeah, I like. I mean, obviously, the magpie in the movie has six eyes, not two. It's a little bit
pretty
you
great.
know,
Well,
otherworldly.
Wonder Girl version,
Right?
right?
Yeah. I also thought it was weird in this. You mentioned sort of like the Looney Tunes fake death stuff. Yeah, I also thought it was weird that it looks like an abandoned concert. Like the underworld's like a poorly attended Burning Man. It's kind of
Basically, yeah,
funny.
burning. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. Really quiet. Not much going on. Everyone's kind of just somber. Uh, yeah, yeah. I like the animals. They're the cat. I think the cat is sort of the number one star of the show. So I'm a fan.
Uh,
I love it. I love it how it just knocks things over and then obsesses
yes,
over it. Like I
yes.
could. I was the first time and also the second time. I was just laughing hysterically.
Mhm. Well, again, it's so funny because, like, when you're watching it, everyone else, like, I imagine everyone, I mean, that tiger is what, 5 times her size? It's enormous
Yeah,
and
it
it has this
comes out of the
big,
shadows and it's
yes, and
growling, and then you're
yes,
disarmed. You're disarmed
yes,
by its fumbling, bubbling.
yes. Yeah, and it's so cute. Like you can't be terrified of this thing that keeps trying to
Right.
bring the flower pot
Yeah.
back over. But yeah, at first she draws her sword, and then of course
Yeah.
it it's so great.
I, I do
Um,
I do like it how all their weapons, like their glow weapons or whatever, are all authentic Korean historically accurate swords. They all have
of
like
course.
fancy names.
The the lady Maggie Kane, who wrote and directed the movie, she said she just wanted to write a movie that she would want to watch. And of course,
Yeah.
she has her Korean heritage, which she wanted to, weave into the film. And I think she did that really well. Um,
She I just want to interrupt real quick. I apologize.
Mm.
She's my understanding is she started the movie with the Demon Hunter and the history stuff first, and then at the end actually added the K-pop stuff because it was a little dusty, a little too dry. And then she's like, "Oh, but this is part of our history too," and then it makes it
Yeah,
fun. Like if
it
it
makes
were
it so
all
fun.
yeah, if it were all just sort of like fighting and, good versus bad and demons, it's not nearly as fun as,
Mm-mm.
sharks versus
Totally.
jets. Let's make this,
Yes.
let's give it a little pizzazz. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. It's and that like the whole K-pop element makes it so much more fun because it's like
so much better.
well, again, no one would have expected it. Like it's battling girl and boy bands, and so like when you're watching it, you're like, wait, what? And so Jinu presents himself to Guima, kind of the demon, the leader of
Right,
all the demons.
right.
And it's just hilarious because of course he is essentially like Satan and he's
Yeah,
mean and he's ragging
all
on
right,
people. And
here's,
then I love him. Oh, a demon boy band. It's
here's,
so funny.
here's the most important question.
Uh,
One, can you name all the Saja boys off the top of your head?
oh,
And
it's gonna be
then
hard. And it's
second,
so great because they list them in that one like uh that hot sauce drinking contest. Okay,
sure,
there's Romeo, there's
romance,
Abby, huh?
romance, I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, Romeo, romance. Again, there's Abby, there's Genu, baby, Saja, mystery.
Yeah, did you get all of them?
I think I got them all. Who am I missing?
So which one's your favorite?
Of course, like Genu, but Abby's pretty hilarious. I like
So what do you
Abby.
think Abby's name is based off of?
What is his abs? He does like the rubbings of his abs. It's amazing. He does the little
I
yeah
just think
the
it's
rubbings of the
hilarious.
yes
I think
yes
it's so hilarious that they have a boy band and one of the characters is named Abby and it's based off of abs and he has
yes
like abs of steel. Like
steel.
I just think that's like that it would be like naming someone Smiley
I
or
know.
Flexy, because they're flexing their
Hmm.
muscles. And he does throughout the movie. It's just like abs, abs, abs.
Abs.
I
He is
just
abs.
it's so on the nose. It's
Yes. He's
hilarious.
so funny. It's so funny. And then mystery, of course, he has the
He
bangs
has
that you
the
can't see
hair,
the
yeah.
eyes. Yeah, it's fantastic. So in our household, our favorite scene, which has been requested just to put on
The
in and of
corn,
itself, is do you know which one? Do you know?
the corn when they first bump into him.
When they first bump into him, that's the best. The popcorn eyes. I love those animations. And then he bumps her, and of
And then
course
he's
you're
like,
watching it, and you're like, he's gonna be a
or
Romeo to help her up, and then he just does this. It's hilarious. And she's just
right.
watching.
Oh no, he
Oh,
didn't. Yeah.
yes. So hilarious. It's like the best scene
Yeah.
ever. Best scene ever.
I think it's funny too how they're like, like, oh wow, they're so handsome. And then like before they even walk away, they're like, those jerks.
They're
You
like,
know, they're so
yes.
conceited.
Pretty great. Pretty great. What else? So the Genu character is really fascinating, right? So one question I had for the internet is why are some of the demons, cartoonish and gross, whereas like the boy band guys look completely different. They look more human. They just don't have the big cartoonish multicolor faces and horns and whatnot. And apparently this actually links up to like Korean folklore demonology as well. So the Saja boys are more of a specific type of demon, and they're like the Undertaker demon. And the outfits that they wear when they do their idol song with the
The
hats and
Grim
whatnot,
Reapers, yeah.
that's if you Google it, that's the exact type of demon. Oh, I have the name of it. It's the Jusung, Jeoseung, Saja,
Sasha.
messengers
Yeah.
of the underworld.
Oh, I looked that up too. Yeah, because Saja has a double meaning. It means
Mm-hmm.
lion, which is sort of like their avatar. The Saja boys and all the little when people vote, that they like the Saja boys, they're always picking the avatar
Yep.
with the lion on it. But like the other meaning is like sort of like the Grim Reaper, the Undertaker, based on that. So it's sort of interesting. It's like a double entendre.
Yeah, and you and I we talked about this one-on-one before, but there's so much like biblical symbolism in the movie as well. And so like the lion, like I guess lions pop up in a lot of different religious or cultural texts, but of course lion comes up in the Bible. And like there's that main quote, let's see, your adversary, the devil, is a roaring lion, and he walks about seeking whomever he may devour. And so in the Bible, already Satan is talked about as a lion. But again, another way that Satan or the devil is discussed, he's kind of described as an accuser or an adversary. And so in this way, the devil is seen as like a courtroom adversary. His power lays in pointing out guilt, shame, and unworthiness. And like
Yeah.
there are several times in the Bible where Satan appears before God to accuse people in the Bible about how they're not worthy of like God's grace, and how they're, using God or not worthy of God. And so it's funny because like the Guima character is literally that embodied. You're so useless. You've never done anything for anyone except for yourself. It's just so interesting. Again, and it's a kids movie, but like he fills that accuser role so well, and just he holds on to people through strings of shame, pulling on those strings. And
I
so, I know Frozen touches upon the whole shame element, but I feel like this movie, again, very adeptly for a kids movie, really highlights that everyone battles elements of shame. Like you said, your bad hair, or there are other girls in the Huntrix band, you're too much and not enough at the same time. It shows how everyone has those inner demon voices and like your own inner accuser. But
I
anyway, I'm always fascinated by overlapping symbolism, and I think this movie does it well.
Yeah, I'd say the bad guy, you know the evil
Guima.
characters, yeah, uh, you know, sows doubt. He makes people doubt themselves. He undermines faith. He undermines hope.
Mhm.
So if you can get people to doubt themselves or doubt each other, then you know, I think that's like how they're trying to undermine the protective network and sort of feast on souls that way.
Yeah, and it's kind of, it reminds me of like a con man, right? Like if you watch, I remember the movie Matchstick Men, and he was in the movie. Nicolas Cage talks about like a good con man. Like if you're good at what you do, you never steal from anybody; they give it to you. And
Yeah.
so, like oddly, I think the Guima character, in that way, like you said, he makes people doubt themselves, and so they willingly turn to the dark side. And that can either be in a Faustian life like pact, like Genu had, where you want a beautiful voice and you're willing to sell your soul for it, or he kind of creeps in when you're at your lowest point, and you want to turn to the dark side because you feel like you can't do better or find better. And so it just shows like two very particular ways where people might turn to the dark side at points of weakness. And so, again, it's pretty deep for a kids movie, but also I think pretty powerful.
I want to swerve in a different direction a
All right,
little
swerve.
bit. I think it's interesting that the movie at least touches upon sort of performance culture or uh, you know uh, sort of being competitive and just like you're always on. Like I think a lot. One thing that resonates uh, with people about the movie is like when how often do they take a break? Here they are. They're they're full time musicians. They're working every day. They're doing their dances. They're doing their singing, but they're also constantly hunting demons. So they have to work nonstop. And you sort of you get the sense that maybe they didn't really have that much of a childhood. You feel like they probably grew up too young. Um, and like they just feel like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. And again, even if it's on a smaller scale, I think a lot of people, maybe even more so now than 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, really feel a lot of pressure, really feel a lot of performance pressure that they have to do great in school and they have to do great in the real world and they have to do everything. Um, and I think at least one undercurrent that I got from the movie was that pressure's real and that it's exhausting. Like it's really exhausting. And it's like it's even understandable that people question themselves. It's understandable that you reach a low point because it's inevitable. Like if you're always on and you're only as good as your last performance, and someone else, the Sasha Boys or whoever, could just completely
Take it from
usurp
that.
you. When it's gone that fast and everything sort of. I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people struggle with, that sense of like permanence and that sense of like, hey, I have, a stable ground underneath. I feel like a lot of people feel like it's kind of precarious. Like
Yeah.
at least in the U.S., 70% of people live paycheck to paycheck. It's like I feel most people can resonate with this sort of, hey, I feel like it is precarious. I feel like I am living on the edge.
Hmm.
Yeah, so like I think that's another reason maybe it resonates. Um,
Sure.
it's just sort of like the exhaustion and the need to perform and the need to succeed, like success culture, performance culture. You got to keep it going, and even then, like the Rumi's I guess stepmom or godmother. She's like, you can't show any weakness. You can't. I think a lot of people get that. Either from their parents or role models or whatever. It's just like soldier through it. You can do it. Show no weakness. You'll get past it. You can, you can rest later. And it's like there's never any time, and it's sort of going back to the it's conceal, don't feel. It's like you gotta be the best, and it's there's no second best because everyone's counting on you. So I don't know, like to me that resonates. I get that part.
Sure. Yeah. And I imagine a lot of people also feel, especially even younger people, because, social media, like so many kids grow up thinking about like, what is my image? What's my brand? Like when you and I were growing up, we never had to think about like, how do I want to depict my life in visual format so people think I'm, really successful. And so I think that's everyone feels like they're being watched, and at least digitally they are. There's really not a lot of privacy, and you're on some sort of social media app, TikTok for the youngins, just kind of representing yourself as a brand or a quantity to be consumed. So, yeah, there really is no rest when it comes to that part of life. And I understand they're, the Huntrix performing and demon hunting, that's different, but I think it's kind of symbolic or representative of what modern culture offers.
Yeah.
So, one question I feel like This is actually a movie that, some movies when they go well or do well, they kind of like, all right, we have to figure out some sort of sequel that we can do just because it's just too successful not to. But I think this movie is actually ripe for prequels and sequels. Like there are
Both,
so many
yeah. I had that
unanswered
topic
questions. Huh?
because yeah, like the mom and the demon father character is
Right. What's
such
the
an
origin
obvious
story?
prequel, right?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And I love how in the movie, like, he's like, Guimo's like, by the way, she bears my mark, but I have no control over her. Okay. No, we're not digging into that. We're
Right,
okay.
right.
So yeah, it's absolute,
They,
uh,
and
amazing
the,
content for a
the
prequel. Uh,
real quick, the other prequels I feel like that are obvious are the Demon Hunters of the previous generations, not just her mother's generation, but like they do a montage of all sorts of demon hunters for hundreds or thousands of years. I mean, like
mhm,
those,
mhm.
like yeah, those are going to be prequels too, or spin-offs.
Yes. Did you have any other unanswered questions, or things that you wanted to dig in, or you would like to see in a sequel or explored in a sequel?
Not really. I mean, I guess probably Genu. You know, like Genu's backstory should probably be a prequel. Or, I mean, there's so many things that need to be explained about his background. One thing that bothers me about the Genu character, if we're being honest here, is I feel like he's remarkably immature for someone that's 400 years old. You know, like first of all, he has no game. He's handsome and all that stuff, but like, like it's like the aw shucks. Oh, we were kind of caught holding hands. I want that bracelet. You know, seems weird for someone who's 400 years old, right? Like,
Ah,
and like I get it. Like I like it for the development of the love story, but just like, come on, you know, it seems a little bit overdone. I think it's
mhm,
done for theatrical and dramatic reasons, but it's like because if he acts like he's 400 years old, they're not going to have anything in common. So
anything
they
common?
yeah, so it's almost like he's been frozen in time as a teenager for 400 years. I think that's sort of how they do it.
Sure, yeah, and it's what are they doing for those 400 years? What does that look like? And yeah, I have a lot of questions about Guima. I don't know how to pronounce it. But he gets more powerful the more souls he steals. But why does he need to do packs when he can just suck up souls? And
Yeah.
are all the demons there just kidnapped souls? And if they defeat Guima, are the souls returned? I have a lot of like logistical questions about soul theft
Yeah,
and how they can be freed.
I also have logistical questions in terms of, I don't like it how, the godmother and also Rumi, sort of like take, you sort of assume that like, oh well, once we fix everything with sort of like the golden protection, all the demons will be
Honeymoon,
gone.
honeymoon.
Yeah, the Hun. Yeah. So once that's all sealed off, like I'll be good. Like yeah, they don't consider like maybe I'll be trapped in the underworld. Like they're like, oh, that's not a possibility. And then when she's talking to Genu and kind of trying to negotiate, like, oh, you make the Saja boys fail, and I'll seal the Hun Moon, and then but don't worry because you'll be on this side. You'll be good too. You'll be trapped on the good. It's like, well, isn't the whole point that like once it's sealed, all the bad stuff goes? So like you're just assuming that now you're cool, like you have sort of like the skeleton key and can let anyone in who you want. Like there were a lot of like leaps in logic that didn't make any
Mhm.
sense. Like I mean I suppose it's plausible in the sort of suspension of disbelief sort of way, But
Mhm.
I don't know. I was like, where are you getting that from? Like, there's no guidebook. It's not like, oh, I count. I read in the Great Elder Book. If you're covered in half demon marks, you're good. And then if you're a repentant demon, you're also good. So there weren't really there aren't any rules. They kind of play fast and loose with sort of the details.
They did, and that's why we need the prequel. I need to see that book. I want to know what the bylines are. One has to assume that maybe as a demon hunter, one would hope that sealing the Hun Moon or whatever would keep all the demons at bay. But even if that weren't you, you would think that like the ends justify the means and like the greater good. Even if you're cast down, at least everyone else is safe. Same thing for Gino. Like he talks about, and this is again kind of biblical reference, like New Testament, where she's like, I hate Guima and I hate my patterns, and he's like, don't you think if hate could defeat him, that would have already succeeded? Like thus
Yeah.
implying that love and like coming together and turning the other cheek, that's how you overcome evil.
Yeah.
And
It, it,
so yeah,
just
again,
to
another
interject
symbolic nod. Hmm?
just to interject briefly, again, like in 400 years, his best idea, Genu's best idea is, I want to forget everything. Like, that's like his plan A. Like, that's the plan he's hatched over 300 years. If I can just make some sort of deal so I can forget everything, then it'll be like, I feel like that's a lame plan A. Like, I understand if that's like well, nothing else works, so I guess we'll go with that. But it just seemed like, I don't know. It seemed like he didn't think things through very well.
Well, in his defense, it seems like one has to imagine that again they look like they're in hell, right? And so does he have a lot of time to
I
really
prefer
be
it
doing
Burning. I
that?
call it Burning Man. I feel like they're stuck at
Yes.
Burning Man.
And he said all demons do is feel, and they feel like constant shame and suffering. And like I met you and I have both like we've both been sick sometimes, and whenever, or like when you're hurting, like I broke my foot, like when you're in a lot of pain, like you can't think very clearly. And
Yeah.
so imagine like being living eternally in like
Well, yeah.
hellfire and aching pain. Maybe you're not thinking so clearly. So
Um,
I don't know. Another
yeah.
thing
I
I
mean,
really
there
like is
is
that he
like,
mentioned. Oh, what?
yeah, there is there's like the Inferno. Like the Dante's Inferno. You're in the various rings of hell or whatever. Yeah, I get it.
So again, random scene. Let's just talk about some scenes that we like. So I
Okay.
love when they bump into each other. Love that scene. Another one is when Ginu is trying to sell the idea of the boy band, and Guima's like, "Do you really think that would work?" And then like there's the
They
flash of
do
them
the
like just
dance, and
going,
they're
"Yep,"
like,
and all
yeah,
the demons like, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah." Like
yeah.
I love that scene. Another one that makes me laugh every time is when they chase the boy band into the bathhouse and like they get through the door and they're like men's, and everyone's like, no. Like no one wants to see old saggy dudes in the men's bathhouse. And then he's like, ew, you followed us in here. And Abby's like, yeah, that one's always looking at me funny. And you see like his little abs flare up in the popcorn eyes. Love that scene.
I
What
like it.
else?
I like it
Oh,
how there's sort of like they invite him on to the game show. There's sort of like a
right.
Scooby Doo vibe. There's
Yeah.
like I can't put my finger on it, but it's sort of like this overtly comical shtick. And it makes me it's silly, but it still makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
leather outfits going down the slides.
The leather has betrayed us. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was
Similarly,
pretty great.
like in the opening scene, uh yeah, how they're like obsessed with the ramen. They're like killing all these demons, but they don't want to
Yeah.
spill the ramen
Ramyun.
again. Yeah.
I actually looked it up and I was like, why they call it ramyun and versus like Japanese ramen. And so Uh, the Japanese version is like artisanal, like handmade noodles, and the ramen is a thing of beauty and like time and forethought is put into it. Whereas the Korean ramyun is like the microwavable stuff that's more like fast eats, much higher in like sodium. Also just a delicious snack, but different culturally. One's more high end and the other's, something that you get in a package at the grocery store. So what else? What else? Why do you
Another.
think demons are so incompetent?
Why do I think they are?
Mhm.
Like I don't think it's. I don't think it's supposed to be heavy thought. I think it's supposed to be more numbers. Like in like the subway scene or whatever. It's just like hundreds of. I think they're all purple. It's like formless demons that are just. It's again. I feel like it's sort of you're being overwhelmed by the masses. There's sort of
Mhm.
you're being overwhelmed by emotions and suffering and question. It's almost like de-individualized.
Yeah. Well, also, again, imagine like what kind of army of fighters are you going to have if you do nothing but berate them and belittle them, and they're living in hellish, headquarters and whatnot. Like, I think that speaks to uh that also might be why they're not that great because they're not really happy about why they're there. They're not fighting for a cause they believe in. They're more just trapped. So that's a thought. Yeah, I want to know. I want more backstory on that. Um, Another question I have is how is the human population so oblivious to this battle for all their souls? Like, there's that one quote from the TV about how missing persons have
Yeah,
tripled overnight. Like, no one's concerned that we're not. An entire subway of people just goes
just
missing,
disappeared.
and it
Yeah.
doesn't, people aren't connecting the dots. There isn't some sort of public uproar, but we should definitely be going to concerts no matter what. So it's like, again, how are they so oblivious to this huge, rapid missing persons and murder going on?
Well,
I don't get that.
going back to something that I feel like we mentioned a couple times, like we're missing logistical details. At various points in the movie, they fly. Like at the beginning, when the plane gets destroyed, they jump out. They don't have any parachutes, and then like they seemingly land in like lights and smoke and all that, but like they don't have any parachutes. And then
Yep.
later on, when she's with the cat, they're like bounding across the river. She's
Yes.
clearly flying, and in the
Yes.
final,
My child is like, does the cat fly? And
yeah.
like, sort
Yeah, and then in the final fight scene, like after they've dispatched the bad guys, they're just kind of floating, like hundreds of
of. Yes.
feet in the air, and like no
Yes.
one's like, "Hey, that's kind of weird. Like, when did you get fly?" Like, and it seems like they all three have flying ability, but like, there's
Yes.
no discussion about like, oh, I guess apparently when you're in Demon Hunters, you get to fly.
Well,
Um,
you Yes. And the weapons that you talked about, they just materialize. Like
right,
suddenly, so that's another magical power. They could just conjure up their
yeah.
weapons at any moment.
Right. It's a little bit like a lightsaber, but even better because you don't even have to have the handle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which weapon would you want? The sword? I don't even know the names of the weapons, but there's like
Yeah,
the little knives that Zoe has, like the stick with the blade on the end, and then like a
yeah.
legit sword.
Probably the sword followed by the stick with. I don't think I would just want sort of like the throwing knives. I feel like it was anytime they were going into a fight, like she has a lot of them, but I just feel like it's not enough.
I know. I feel like that's the lamest one too. I wouldn't want the throwing knives either.
I guess it's okay if like she never runs out of the throwing knives, like they automatically reload. But I
Yeah.
don't know. It just feels like you. She doesn't have much distance. She doesn't have anything to like fend it off because
Yeah. It's the least fun of the weapons.
for
So
sure.
he definitely drew the short
Shorts.
straw on that one. But yeah, what else? What else? So I didn't know that there were different voice actors for like just the talking scenes versus the singing. So but they actually drew the characters to look a lot
Base
like the women playing,
the
or
top.
the women, okay, the women doing the voice look a lot like the cartoon characters. And they, so now they're gonna actually, it's actually good for like live versions of plays and whatnot because they actually look like them. But I thought that was interesting that they took physical features from each of the voice actors and kind of incorporated them into the cartoon.
I think they also like. I think maybe like the director. You know, like they weaved her into like being one of like the demon characters, like the ones that's like
Oh.
watering the plant with the coffee. Like I think she's
Oh,
supposed to look, and I think it's her voice. I think she's like acting like that demon. This is like
that's pretty
fun
good.
for funsies.
Yeah, yeah. What are your favorite songs?
Uh, so I'm going to say. I mean, I'm gonna say soda pop because I
Right.
find it so ridiculous.
It's
Uh,
great.
it's great, but it's just like you're my soda pop. I'm gonna drink you up, like because I feel like it's so boy bandish. You know, like it's
Mm-hmm.
so like over the top bubblegum kind of,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Saccharin.
oh yeah, oh, it's saccharine, but also like overtly, sexual without being sexual. Like it's like it just feels like, oh, this is a boy band song. Like I feel
Yeah,
like they really nailed it.
yeah, they
And
really did hard.
I like I like that it's not that one's not too inspirational. I like it how it's not
It's
self
super.
betterment.
It's like
Like
deep. It's that deep.
yeah, it's thin as you pop. It's not deep at all. It's as shallow as it gets. Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the other ones are about like this is my journey, this is my struggle, this is my battle, and like you said before, a lot of the other ones like the idol, like there's all this like religious and spiritual overtones, but that one just straight consumerism, straight boy band, just totally, it is what it is.
But I actually think there's symbolism to that too, because
Oh,
they
of
want to
course.
take their life
Their
force.
life
I want to
force. Yeah.
your soul, and
Yeah.
it's
Your
so
soul.
great. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, be the idol is like, give me your soul, worship me again. Golden calf in the Bible talks about, don't worship false idols. They're like, no, 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 worship me. I'll love your sins. Wink. But then drink you up is like, I will drink your life force. I will gobble you up. And yeah, so like they're being completely honest with the
Very
humans
literal.
about how they want to just consume them, and people are happily going along with it. So it was interesting that pink, like pink red, of course, represented all things demon. So notice every single boy band member had pink incorporated into his outfit.
Right.
And of course, whenever they have a successful song, you see that like shockwave of pink over the Hun Moon. And so you can see their popularity like changing hearts and minds, souls, even. So I thought that was, I like the visual cues there. Another thing I like about this movie is I don't think there's a single wasted moment. Like even that like game show scene where they're drinking the hot sauce, they introduce all of the boy band characters. That's how you learn their names. Yeah, and oh, another thing is in that one scene you said that like the Scooby Doo scene, they call them their hoobays. Remember the hoobays? I looked up that word and it's like a younger man that will learn something from like a more experienced woman. And so I just like the Korean culture and how they have like all these honorifics and like special names for relationships. And then at the end where they bow, like they try to like, no, we're more honored
Yeah,
and
they
then they
wanted
bow
they're
lower and
over.
lower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty good. All right, any other? We're at 54 minutes, bro. Any other thoughts before we
Yeah.
wrap it up?
Here's a question for you. Do you think do you think the boy band characters, you think the Saja boys are friends? in the underworld? Do you think like they have any history, or do you think they're like all 400 years old, or do you think they just got together for this gig? Like
That's a great question. Oh, and one other thing is when they leave the talk show, I don't know why. First of all, they throw out the flowers that they get and they immediately hunch over. And like, do you notice that they immediately hunch like ghouls? As soon as they
yeah.
leave, they start hunching. I don't think they're friends in the underworld. They don't ever seem to get along. I think it was more like I don't know, they were all the Undertaker ghouls or demons. So like they knew that they were a different caliber of demon. Uh but I doubt they were friends. What do you think?
I mean, they all seem to be like henchmen.
Yeah.
They don't seem to have they don't seem to have any more depth to them. But I like asking it just as a question. I think it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so many underworld questions. Uh what do you think of the manager with his little catfish mustache?
I mean, I feel like he's a bridge character,
Mhm.
because every other character is a little intense. Other than like the tiger. Because you're like I find all the characters a little bit overwhelming. Like they're
Mhm.
just I must save the world. I must be sarcastic all the time. I must be creative and expressive, or it's just like I feel like he's necessary. Like he's necessary as like a counterweight and as ballast, and kind of again like to bridge like most people being like, oh, they have a beautiful voice. They have beautiful songs. Like we're fans. We're genuine. And it's kind of it's almost without breaking the fourth wall. He's kind of trying to almost say what older people are thinking.
I he has some funny lines in the movie. Like they'll say like, "Oh, don't worry. What's his name again? Kept blanking on. Do you remember his name?"
I thought it was like Bobby or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong.
But then she's like, "Oh, don't worry. He can handle it." And he calls
I
and like
can't
saying like,
handle
"No,
it.
I can't handle this." It's
Yeah.
just so. And then they think like, "Don't worry. I'm sure they're okay with 10,000 screaming fans and they're not afraid." And it clicks to there's 10,000 fans here and we're really afraid. So just funny little winks like that. I appreciate it. So, what would you give the movie, Morgan?
Oh, 10.
Out of
For
10?
fun? For
Yes.
fun? 10 out of 10. But
Yes.
even like for like depth and rewatchability, like a 9 or a 9.5. Because the thing is, I've already watched it twice. And like again, there's so many hidden layers. I don't mind because like normally you'd be like, this is an overreaction. Normally you'd be like, you rated a 10, and 3 months later, a year later, you feel guilty, and you're like, it should have been a 6. But with this, they're like, no. I mean, like they worked on this movie for like 9 years. Like they put a lot of heart, soul, research, creativity, fun, music. There's a lot here. There's a lot to like. There's a lot of layers. I'm like, and not only that, we're sort of in a we're sort of in a creative wasteland. Like there aren't that many interesting films. We're so amidst all the movies that are sequel
Garbage
number
content. Yeah.
74. Yeah. It's like, no, this is creative. This is a passion project that hits all the right notes. I'll give it a 10.
So unique. So unique. And like right notes, just the music in and of itself. I think Sony was smart enough to give itself a clause in the contract where it gets some of the residuals from the songs. But yeah, Sony is whoever someone got fired or demoted for that decision. I'm sure. I am sure. But I
Yeah.
can't.
I mean, on the other side, just to play devil's advocate, ha 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 pun. Uh y- the like could Sony have necessarily marketed it or made it this successful? I mean, there aren't that many platforms like Netflix. And like
Yes.
I'm sure there's a lot of projects that are clever, but for whatever reason, they just never go viral. I think there's probably, for every good idea that goes viral, there's probably another good idea that just, for whatever reason, isn't quite as sticky, never hits that first million people and doesn't resonate. Like, and if people hadn't told me to watch it, there's no way I ever would have found it on my own. And I like it. But there's just, I mean, when you go on streaming, how many thousands of options do you have? Like, there's no way
Mm-hmm.
you can try everything. So if people don't, bump it to the top of your feed, there's no way you'd find it.
That actually reminds me of something I read in an article, and it was talking about kind of that very same thing. But because would this movie have been nearly as successful if it had been released as a traditional movie? Like, let's
No
say if
way.
Sony held on to it. Yeah, it wouldn't have. Because what made it so virally popular is that kids found it over the summer and they watched it over and over and over and they recommended it to their friends and they had it at a click of a
Yeah.
button away.
Yeah, and that's how I like to consume it. Honestly, like I'll probably watch. It's like one of these things where you have a long weekend, like a holiday weekend or whatever. Like I could totally watch it again. And but it's also like not necessarily something where you go into the movies is like $50, $75 if you take a whole family. Like I could see myself talking myself out of it. Like I don't want to spend that much money. But if it's on demand, yeah, let's do this. Because it's a completely different value prop. Like I think it's worthy of my time, and like I don't feel bad watching it. Like it's like a guilt. It's somehow it's a guilt free watch when it's on streaming.
Mhm. Mhm. But it is funny because it also is like breaking the rules because they released it in the theaters well after it was available via streaming and still broke box
Yeah,
office records because it was more of a celebratory. People
yeah.
wanted to go with their friends. It was like a sing-along
It's
version,
like
and
it's
it's
like a
like
Rocky.
for children. Hmm?
Yeah, it's like a Rocky Horror Picture Show at that point. Like you're
Yes.
going there because you want to sing the songs with it. You're already hooked. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah. So I'm actually really looking forward to like when the Oscars happen because like I think this movie is gonna do crazy well, and it deserves it because sometimes lately the movies that have been picked, I'm just like, what? I like that. What was it? Everything all at once, everything everywhere all at once. I tried to watch it. Oh my gosh, I wanted to like it, Morgan, and I got like 20 minutes in, and like she's chewing crayons, and I was like, what? It was. I didn't think it was great. I did. You
I
joked that
mean,
like my bread and butter are like play or movies that win best screenplay, and like that goes up until a point, and then it just kind of goes off a cliff, and I'm like, no, I don't like the
I mean,
modern ones that
part
win
of
now.
part of the problem with the Academy is I think they get too wrapped up in trying to tell people what they think they should like rather than
Mm,
responding to what they actually like. Sometimes it's one and the same. Sometimes it's like, hey, audiences love it, and the Academy's like, yes, we love it too. But so often you're just like, are you really trying to sort of force feed this thing? I don't like watching this.
are
Like
you
it's
trolling me?
yeah, it's and like and I'm a pretty I like to think about. I'm pretty cerebral. Like I like to unpack things, but like if it's too
Yeah,
cerebral for me, it's just gonna like
I don't want to
I
watch.
yeah, I don't know who your audience is because like I can think about things all the time, and if it's too cerebral for me, then you're just overdone. Um,
Yes.
and I like the fact that like they deal with issues, they deal with insecurities, they deal with demons. But they
Hmm.
don't do this particular movie doesn't do it in a sort of like a self righteous sort of way.
Yeah.
It's not sort of like it's not overdone. It's not overwrought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we will see. We will see. But if anyone comments, do you have any questions for? If anyone's watching an hour in, God bless you. Do you have any questions for viewers or anything before we wrap up?
Yeah. Here's one. Here's one that I grappled with. I still don't even have an answer for this. I asked you, do you think you have the Saja boys are friends in real life, and you didn't know. But I think on the flip side, a reasonable question is, how close is Huntrix? I mean, clearly they're best friends, but they also like hide things from each other, like really fundamental things. They've always wanted to go to the bathhouse with Rumi, and she's never done it because she's self-conscious, and understandably so. But it makes you wonder, like, okay, even if you've been fighting demons with someone years and years, and you on the surface, ostensibly have a lot in common with them. How much do you really know anyone? Like, are they best friends, or do they just have the same role? And like, what constitute like how much of yourself, like, do your best friends need to know? Because like there's obviously this betrayal that happens, and her friends are really betrayed that like she didn't share this with her, and like the movie doesn't really get into that, and then it's sort of they come back to her, they rally around her and they seem to forgive her, but like, I don't know, I mean, like, that's sort of in a sequel I'd sort of want to know, because like in their heads, Zoe, and Mira, like, yeah, they're gonna ask themselves, like, what else, like, are we as close as we like? Are we good now? Are we good now? Um,
Mhm.
and I think people, that's something I think it's interesting because because they work together, and everyone sees them. It's like when you watch bands as a kid, you're like, oh, the Beatles obviously are best friends. They got to be best friends all the time. Oh, the Backstreet Boys obviously have to be best friends. It's like, but are they? I don't know.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Mm-mm. They're not. They're
yeah, are they
not.
coworkers? Are they, collegial coworkers, or are they actually best friends? So, I mean, I think in the movie they portray them as best friends, but they're also young. We all make mistakes. So, I don't know. I think that's interesting. It's like, what is friendship?
Yeah, it's funny. I think you pointed out early in our chat that they're workaholics, right? And
Yeah,
they're basically coworkers who care about each other. And they didn't choose each other, they were chosen and put together for a cause. And
yeah,
so and simultaneously stinging and killing.
sure.
So there's
They,
there's really no time for personal growth. And
they,
I think the more you have to lose from sharing a secret, the higher the likelihood that you're going to want to hide it, right? So
it's
um,
it's
I think that
it's
answers your question. What
what I was gonna say is,
did they share?
they sort of remind me of like Olympic gymnasts that have been
Oh yeah,
selected, and they're on the same team, and they're high performers, and they're working together side by side every single day. But that doesn't actually mean that they know what they're like. They know what they eat. They know how they exercise. They know when they're off, but they don't necessarily know
what's going on in the head?
what's going on up inside. But
Hmm.
on the other hand, you have people. It's kind of analogous, like people who might, serve together in the armed services. Like they might work together every single day. They have a really, they have 100% overlap in terms of, purpose. Like, we're fighting the
Hmm.
bad guys. We rely on each other. We got each other's back. But again, you still might not know what's going. Like, there might not necessarily be an emotional connection. It's what you're doing. It's not what you're saying or speaking or feeling. There's not a lot of feelings being necessarily expressed. So it's just something I kind of wanted to like put out there because I think it's interesting. I think it's
It's a good
interesting, and
question.
I think like it. I mean, if they're good, if the sequels, all 50 of them are any good, they'll explore that a little bit. Like, what does
They should.
friendship mean? Is there an apology? Like, do they actually come to terms with it? Do they actually say, like, actually, you kind of got to share more. You got to be a little bit more honest. We're we share a lot of time together, but we also have to be maybe a little bit more transparent.
Yeah, I see like two prequels. The first is, of course, the mom and that demon
It's gonna be
love
so
story.
good.
Like that's a
It's got
whole
it's
movie unto itself.
Yeah,
You're
opposites
right. Yeah.
attract. Oh
Yes.
man,
Yeah.
so many good
And then
songs.
then then I see like a Karate Kid thing of like the new generation being picked and trained, and like then they learn the way of like this is the song, this is how the song works, this is how the honeymoon works, like and the origin stories of each of the three girls, and that kind of explores those relationships. Are they trained like gymnasts? How do they know each other? I commented that the godmother, like she was only in two places. Sometimes she was in the high rise, but most of the time she was just by that
In the
tree,
garden, yeah.
just hanging out at the big
Here
tree.
I
I
am at
know.
the end of the garden by the tree where I like to
Yep, that's
hang.
right. That's what I do. And I'm like, you're still alive. Like she obviously had her like there's a scene where she's threatened and I think she breaks out her knife. I'm like, you're still alive. You can't kill demons? I don't know. Like you hung up your sword? Uh, lots of questions. Lots of questions. And if there's a sequel, are we ever gonna see Genu again? Because I would be a little hurt if we didn't see Genu again. What happened to
So
Genu?
so yeah, I mean part of what I wanted to know, and like it's like, is it possible? I mean, with the honeymoon, fixed, is it possible for him to, in some way, shape, or form, like reincarnate? I mean, there's because part of it. I told you, I was like, it reminds me a little bit of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It reminds me a little bit of like the Twilight books from like 15, 20 years ago, because there's like, it's like there's like this incompatibility. He's a demon, but obviously it's not
Oh, they're
incompatible
a
because,
monkey.
right, but clearly it can produce kids because that's why
Yeah,
she exists. Like, well, so
yeah.
like, can they get married? Are they gonna, are they gonna have a baby? Like, because like there's all these like, well, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I so many questions. I hope they do it justice.
Yeah,
I'll be so sad if they ruin it.
yeah. I want
But
it. I want to.
I'm sure it's going to
I want.
be a TV show. But
I want it to get like really real. I want it to be like, Genu, how many times have I told you to take out the trash? Like
yeah,
we're making
really,
this. Yeah,
if you always
it's like,
for 400 years, have you ever done anything?
yeah, yeah. Hey, Genu, I thought you said you were gonna. I thought you said you were gonna apply for some jobs. You have a
Yeah,
voice like a songbird. Don't tell me you can't. Get
I
a.
love it. So funny, so
Like,
funny.
I just want there to be like the, why don't we ever take walks on the roof anymore? Why don't we ever walk in the
Exactly.
clouds with the cat anymore? Or the derpy tiger. Like,
Yeah,
I want there to be some real, like classic sitcom, like Bewitched. I want there to be that kind of hijinks. You know.
yes. I like that. Yeah, what do you think of the derpy dwerpy cat and the magpie watching over at the end? Was that like a wink to the viewer that the story isn't over?
Obviously. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, it may as well have said to be continued. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to interpret it.
Yeah. Yeah. Another
And-
random thing. I like when they chant couch. Like that's a team of theirs. Couch, couch,
Yeah.
couch.
Yeah. I mean, similar to like the manager wanting to like use like the hotel that he's booked for them, but he's gonna wear like the comfy robe. You know, I like it because it again makes it more successful, um, but more accessible. But also, as a counterpoint to sort of like this performance culture and the success culture, what do they really want? They really just want to exhale. They really just want to
Mm-hmm.
relax. They just want to chill out on a couch because they're on all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
like, because you know 20 years ago or 40 years ago, people didn't say, like, I can't wait just to sit on the couch. People would say, you have your whole life to sit on the couch. You need to go and be special. It's like, no, no, no. Now everyone can relate to, actually, I just want to sit on the couch. I just want to
Yeah.
unplug. I want to, and part of it is like, there's a lot less off time. I was
Yeah.
watching a comedian the other day, and they're like, everything now is like mindfulness and thoughtfulness and being centered. He's like, I remember growing up. He's like, we didn't do anything. we never had phones. We were always mindful. We were bored. He's like, no one ever pitched mindfulness because we were mindful all the time. And I think couch is just because, hey, getting away from social media, getting away from crowds, getting away from all these crushing responsibility of it all, the weight of expectations from your godmother or whoever. Yeah, I think there's a lot there, but I like it too. Like couch, 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 and then it seemed like both times they got rug pulled. Like it seems like they were, oh sorry, I just launched a new song, and it's like here we go again.
Yeah, or they just left at the end. They left the bathhouse, and they're like, "Yeah, we have how many weeks of a break? Oh, let's go talk to our fans. They're addicted. They can't help it." Yeah, it's a good movie. It's fun to do like a real modern day movie. So I wonder what people are gonna say. But to be determined. We have to figure out what our next movie is, unless you still want to do E.T.
We could do ET. We could do yeah. We can we will let's lean toward ET. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Yeah. All right. Bye bye.